So, David, this was actually, I guess, about a week and a half ago now. Um, there was I guess, a controversy that would not be a such a big deal were it not indicative of something that is happening within the Democratic Party, and that is a think tank parted ways with a program head and an entire program that its think tank held. Tell us the basic outlines of this controversy, which, like I say, is usually something that I think would interest a very small amount of people, but I think has a lot of relevance to the future of the Democratic Party.
You don't think you could make money with a news outlet called Think Tank News? You
Well,
don't
I
think that would
imagine, I imagine
capture
if
the
you,
imagination of Americans?
listen, you'd have to make it
I
a
think
trade
you're right.
magazine,
So
right?
we'll just do the basics of what happened. So the New America Foundation is this think tank in Washington. It's very well funded, and it has a number of different programs, and it has a range of views across the political spectrum. I think that's fair to say. So they've had this program called the Open Markets Program for about 15 years. Barry Lynn is the director of this program, and he, for the last decade and a half, has been talking about the dangers of increasing concentration of economic and political power in the hands of a few large corporations. That has been his focus. He has a number of fellows, there are 10 people in all in the program. They have written reports, they have written journalism. They are largely responsible for what we have seen in the Democratic Party, a shift toward really being concerned about these issues around anti-monopolies, around antitrust. And we've seen that over the last, I'd say, year or two. So you can't talk about this subject anymore without talking about the large internet platforms like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, who are increasing control over large sectors of the economy. So I think my view is the problem really started when Democrats started to pay attention. Yeah,
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, because an indicative of the Democrats paying attention is in the release of the, I keep
Better
referring
deal,
to it
yeah.
as the marginally better deal, but I think the real name of it is actually the better deal. One of the four fundamental planks of this so-called better deal, regardless of what you thought about it broadly speaking as a document and as a marketing tool, was these anti-monopoly planks. And so
Yes.
just to get a sense, and I would also say that you can associate the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren wing of the Democratic Party with this agenda that, like I say, was adopted in this better deal. So, and that happened over the course of the summer. So go back and give us a sense of the funding of the New America Foundation as to why
that is the
this
issue. That is the core issue, because the New America Foundation has received about $21 million in funding from Google or from Eric Schmidt, who is the chairman of the executive chairman of the parent company of Google, Alphabet, or his family foundation. So you can trace a lot of money that the New America Foundation has received back to Google. And that's been true for a while, and Barry Lynn has been there for a while. But it seems to me that it wasn't until this whole notion of monopolies got buy-in from the Democratic Party elite that Google suddenly saw this as a problem. So what happens is, in 2016, Barry Lynn puts together a conference on monopolies at the New America Foundation, and he invites Elizabeth Warren to give the keynote address, and she accepts. And And this is the first sign of trouble. Immediately, this is in emails that we've seen, the head of the New America Foundation, Anne Marie Slaughter, who was in the State Department with Hillary Clinton, decides, she asked Barry Lynn, hey, this top lobbyist from Google, I'm meeting with her tomorrow. Why didn't you give me a heads up that Elizabeth Warren was coming to your conference? And now the conference wasn't about Google. It was about monopolies, so that's kind of a tell. Elizabeth Warren's speech wasn't out there yet, although it did reference Google. It wasn't solely about Google, but they were very concerned. And this concern continued for about a year. It came to a head when the Open Markets Program released a press release, 150 words, praising the European Union for fining Google over antitrust violations in the European Union.
And that was like a
preferring
huge
their shopping
fine.
clients over rivals, essentially.
That was a huge fine, right,
yes.
David? Like $2.6 billion or something?
$2.7 billion fines. It's a threat to the entire business model of Google, which is based largely on making sure that they leverage their dominance in search to, earnings in various other parts of their business. So it's a big deal. And Barry Lynn, his team put out a press release supporting it. And within 2 days, Barry Lynn was told he was no longer going to be working at the New America Foundation and that the Open Markets Program would be spun off out of the New America Foundation. And so, it's not hard to connect the dots here. There was criticism of Google. This is a Google-funded organization, and 2 days later, he's told to get on out. Now, the New America Foundation says this had nothing to do with criticism of Google. It was merely a lack of collegiality, they say, on Barry Lynn's part to not give a heads up when they were going to print something or create an event that didn't, that might threaten, in their words, might threaten the viability and funding of other programs within the New America Foundation, which kind of tells it all, in my view,
right.
that this was about the content of what they were producing and the criticism and who it was pointed at.
Well, I mean, how would funders and what funders would be concerned about Barry Lynn being not collegial to the other, I guess, researchers at the New America Foundation? I mean, honestly, what does that mean? Like, he's not...
If Barry Lynn put out an ad...
He's always cutting in line in the commissary.
If Barry Lynn put out a press release about John Deere tractors, would
right.
Google care if that threatened if he didn't give a heads up to the agriculture department at the New America Foundation? It just wouldn't matter. This mattered because, A, it was about Google, and B, that Democrats were starting to pay attention. They were perfectly happy to have Barry Lynn doing this research about monopolies when it was just something that was out there and wasn't really garnering a lot of popularity within the political halls of power. Once it did, then it became a threat, and that threat had to be snuffed out.
All right. Well, David, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to broaden out the conversation here. I want to talk about why what Google did is indicative of the problems, or one of the problems, that come from these massive monopolies, how the concept of antitrust or anti-monopoly has changed. Why, when you and I say the word antitrust, do we quickly follow it up with anti-monopoly now, the recent research on that? And because this story, at the end of the day, is much bigger than a think tank and the program that it spins off. It is about a central fight that has been brewing in the Democratic Party. It has been put somewhat on hold by Donald Trump, but at the same time, there's also attempt by those who don't want to lose this fight in the Democratic Party to use Donald Trump to punt on this fight, which is an important fight to have. We got to take a break. We'll talk more about that with David Dayen in just a moment. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio.